Ambassador James Walker stood before the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber. His black uniform bore Earth's blue and green emblem on his chest. The crystal towers of the Council station floated in the void of space, a testament to alien engineering that had existed for 10,000 years. The doors opened with a whisper. Inside, representatives from 57 species sat in a perfect circle. Each alien form was unique. Some had tentacles, others had multiple eyes, and a few were made of living crystal. At the center sat High Chancellor Vex, a being of pure energy contained within a humanoid shell. Ambassador Walker of Earth. Vex's voice echoed through the chamber. You have been summoned to answer for your species' crimes. James walked to the center with measured steps. He had prepared for this moment for 3 years. Every word, every gesture had been planned. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders. What crimes does the Council accuse humanity of? James asked, his voice steady. The Chancellor's form flickered with annoyance. Your species has violated the sacred laws. You have shared technology with non-member races. You have interfered in the natural development of 3 primitive civilizations. Most importantly, you have refused to surrender your military vessels as required by Council Law 2847. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The reptilian delegate from Drax Prime hissed in agreement. The water beings from Aqua 7 bubbled. Their displeasure. James remained calm. The Council speaks of laws, yet these laws were created to maintain your control over younger species. Earth joined this council, believing in equality and justice. Instead, we found tyranny dressed in bureaucracy. Silence. Vex commanded. Humanity has been a member for only 50 Earth years. You dare question traditions that have maintained peace for millennia? Peace? James laughed, a sound that shocked the assembly. No one laughed at the council. You call it peace when the Khat species was left to die from a plague because they couldn't afford your medical technology. You call it peace when the peaceful farmers of Beta 3 were enslaved because they had no representative here. The temperature in the room dropped. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. These were truths rarely spoken in these halls. Earth has spent 50 years watching this council operate, James continued. We've seen you divide the galaxy between the powerful and the powerless. You hoard technology while billions suffer. You enforce laws that benefit only the founding species. Chancellor Vex rose from the central platform, energy crackling around the forum. You speak dangerously, human. The Council has the power to quarantine Earth, to cut you off from all galactic trade and communication. Your species would wither and die in isolation. James reached into his uniform pocket. Every security system in the chamber activated, but he pulled out only a small data pad. Before you make threats, Chancellor, perhaps you should know what humanity has been doing for the past decade. He activated the pad. Holographic images filled the chamber. Human ships alongside the previously primitive species, human doctors. Curing diseases on forgotten worlds. Human engineers building infrastructure where the Council had refused to help. We've created our own alliance, James announced. 32 species stand with Earth. Species you dismissed as worthless. Species you left to suffer. They've seen what humanity offers. Not control, but partnership. Not exploitation, but mutual growth. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozen languages. Vex's energy form blazed brighter. This is rebellion. Vex declared, you will face the full might of the Council fleet. James smiled then, and it was not a pleasant smile. You assume your fleet is still loyal to you alone. You might want to. Check your military communications, Chancellor. As of 1 hour ago, 40% of your fleet commanders have declared their support for the new alliance. They're tired of enforcing unjust laws. The revelation struck like a thunderbolt. This was impossible. The Council fleet had been loyal for thousands of years. You asked what humanity brings to the galaxy, James said, his voice carrying over the chaos. We bring change. We bring the one thing you fear most, hope for those you've oppressed. Asterisk the Council chamber had never witnessed such disorder. Delegates frantically checked their communication devices, trying to confirm Ambassador Walker's claims. The crystalline beings chimed in high-pitched alarm. The gaseous entities from the nebula sector swirled in agitated patterns. Chancellor. Vex's energy form pulsed with barely controlled rage. Order. I will have order in this chamber. The Chancellor's voice boomed with such force that the walls vibrated slowly. The chaos subsided. All eyes, sensors, and perception organs turned back to the human ambassador standing calmly in the center. You speak of fleet commanders joining your alliance, Vex said, the word dripping with disdain. Yet you stand here alone, one human, against the might of the Galactic Council. Do you truly believe your species can survive what comes next? James clasped his hands behind his back, a gesture he had learned from studying Earth's ancient diplomats. Chancellor, you misunderstand. I don't stand here alone. I stand here as the voice of 32 species who have been denied justice for too long. He touched his data pad again. The chamber's main viewing screen activated, showing a massive fleet gathered near the Orion Nebula. The ships were a patchwork of designs, some clearly human, others belonging to species the Council had deemed inferior. For 10 years we've been building, James explained. Not just ships, but something more powerful, unity among those you cast aside. The mining colonies of Rex 4, who you tax at 90%. The agricultural worlds of the green sector, whose children starve while feeding your core worlds. The genius engineers of Tech Prime, whose innovations you steal and claim as Council property. A delegate from one of the founding species, a tall insectoid creature named Ambassador Kree, stood up. This is treason of the highest order. These lesser species exist under Council protection. Without us, they would have destroyed themselves. Long ago. Protection? James turned to face Kree directly. Is that what you call it when you stripped Rex 4 of their defensive satellites, leaving them vulnerable to pirate raids? Is that protection when you denied medicine to the plague victims of Sector 9 because they couldn't meet their tribute quotas? The human pulled up more holographic displays, images of suffering across the galaxy, statistics of resource exploitation, records of Council decisions that had condemned millions to death or servitude. Humanity has a saying, James continued. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The Council has held absolute power for too long. You've forgotten. That leadership means service, not domination. High Chancellor Vex descended from the platform, moving closer to James. The energy being's form towered over the human. You dare lecture us on leadership? Your species barely survived its own nuclear age. You fought wars over skin color and imaginary lines on maps. What wisdom could such a primitive race offer? James didn't flinch. You're right. Humanity has a dark history. We've made terrible mistakes. But that's exactly why we recognize tyranny when we see it. We've been both the oppressor and the oppressed. We've learned from our failures. He gestured to the assembled delegates. Look around this chamber. How many species here have a real voice? How many are simply rubber stamps for decisions already made by the 5 founding races? When did this council last vote against the Chancellor's wishes? Several smaller delegates shifted nervously. It was true. The council's democracy was an illusion. A founding species controlled everything through ancient treaties and economic pressure. The human speaks truth, a small voice suddenly said. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Pip from Tiny World, a delegate so minor that most forgot they existed. My people have submitted 17 proposals for basic infrastructure aid, all rejected without discussion. Silence, minor delegate. Vex commanded, but the damage was done. Other voices began to rise. The humans helped us when our crops failed, said the representative from Farm Sector Beta. They shared medical knowledge freely, added the amphibian delegate from Waterworld 3. They asked for nothing in return, whispered the silicon-based. Life form from Crystal Valley. James raised his hand, and surprisingly, the growing voices quieted. Chancellor Vex, the Galactic Council has a choice. Reform yourselves, give equal representation to all members, share technology and resources fairly, or ... or what, human? Vex's form crackled with dangerous energy. James straightened his uniform and spoke with the full authority of Earth and its allies. Or I, Ambassador James Walker, speaking for the United Free Worlds Alliance, hereby declare our independence from the Galactic Council. Furthermore, if you attempt to stop us, if you move against any world under our protection, we will consider it an act of war. The silence that followed James Walker's declaration was absolute. For several heartbeats, no being in the council chamber moved. Then, Chancellor Vex's energy form erupted in a blinding flash that forced many delegates to shield their sensory. Organs? War? Vex's voice was like thunder. You dare threaten the Galactic Council with war? We who have maintained order since before your son was born. James remained unmoved by the display. I don't threaten, Chancellor. I simply state facts. Any aggressive action against the Free Worlds Alliance will be met with appropriate force. Admiral Tor, the Council's military commander, a massive four-armed warrior from the warrior caste of Baal, stood from his observation platform. Human, I have conquered 12 star systems for the Council. My fleets number in the thousands. You have perhaps 100 ships and allies who can barely maintain spaceflight. This is not war. It would be extermination. Admiral Tor, James acknowledged with a respectful nod. Your reputation precedes you. 12 systems conquered, yes. But tell me, when was your last real battle? 20 years ago? 30? Your forces have grown comfortable enforcing order against those who cannot fight back. The Admiral's forearms tensed. You question our military might? I question your readiness, James replied. He activated his pad once more, displaying tactical data. Your fleet positions, your supply lines, your communication protocols. We know them all. While you've been comfortable in your superiority, we've been studying. We've been preparing. Impossible, Admiral Tor roared. Our security is absolute. Your security was designed to stop external threats, James explained. But 40% of your fleet stands with us, remember? They've been feeding us information for years. Every weakness, every blind spot, every outdated protocol you've been too arrogant to update. The human ambassador walked slowly around the chamber, addressing not just the council leadership, but all the delegates. We don't want war. Earth has seen too much death, too much destruction. But we've also learned that sometimes standing up to bullies is the only way to achieve peace. A new figure rose from the founding species section, Elder Wise, the ancient being from the scholar worlds, whose species had helped create the council 10,000 years ago. The elder's telepathic voice touched every mind present. Young human, Elder Wise projected, you speak of justice and freedom, but revolution brings chaos. Billions of lives depend on the order we maintain. Supply chains, trade routes, defensive networks, all would collapse in war. James turned to face the elder with genuine respect. Elder Wise, your concern for life is admirable. It's precisely why we've spent 10 years building parallel systems. Every world that joins our alliance is immediately integrated into new trade networks. We've established independent supply chains. We've created our own defensive grids. He pulled up more data. Trade agreements between alliance worlds, new space stations under construction, agricultural worlds already shipping food to previously starved populations. We're not destroying the old system and hoping for the best. James continued, we're building a better one alongside it. Any world that wishes to join us will find infrastructure ready and waiting. Lies and propaganda, Chancellor Vex snarled. You cannot possibly have achieved such organization in secret. Not in secret, Chancellor. In places you never bothered to look. James smiled slightly. The Outer Rim territories, the mining asteroids, the agricultural moons, all the places you deemed beneath your notice. That's where we built our foundation. The water-being delegate from Aqua 7 suddenly spoke, its voice like bubbling streams. Ambassador Walker, if what you say is true, why reveal yourselves now? Why not continue building in secret? Because hiding time is over, James answered. 3 days ago, Council security forces raided a human medical station treating refugees from the cot plague. They destroyed medicines that could have saved thousands, all because we didn't have proper council permits. He let that sink in before continuing. That was the final straw. We can no longer stand by while people die for bureaucracy. High Chancellor Vex's form began to stabilize, calculating. You realize that even if some of our fleet has joined you, we still have overwhelming superiority. The founding worlds alone could crush your alliance. Could you? James asked. At what cost? How many ships will you lose? How many of your comfortable core worlds will burn? And when the smoke clears, will the surviving species thank you or curse you? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Several delegates were now openly communicating with their home worlds, reporting the unprecedented events. Moreover, James added, how certain are you of your people's loyalty? When they learn that there's an alternative to council rule, that other species are thriving in freedom, how many will choose to stay under your control? The debate had raged for 3 hours. Delegates argued, shouted, and pleaded. Some called for immediate military action against Earth. Others urged caution. A few brave souls even suggested negotiation. Through it all, James Walker stood firm in the center, answering questions and deflecting threats with calm precision. Then, the chamber's emergency alarms began to wail. Admiral Tor rushed to his command. Console, his forearms working frantically over the controls. What is happening? Report. The main viewing screen flashed to life, showing the space around the council station. Hundreds of ships were dropping out of hyperspace, not in attack formation, but in a protective sphere around the station. They bore the markings of the Free Worlds Alliance. Impossible. Tor bellowed. Our sensors should have detected them parsecs away. Your sensors detect what they expect to detect, James said calmly. Human stealth technology, combined with innovations from our allies, created something new. We call it ghost running. Your systems literally cannot see us unless we want them to. Chancellor Vex's form blazed with fury. This is an invasion. You've brought a war fleet to our capital. No, James corrected. We've brought a defense fleet. They're not here to attack. They're here to ensure this discussion remains peaceful. Too often, the Council has ended debates with force. Not today. A communication channel opened, and a human face appeared on screen. Admiral Lisa Park, commander of the Alliance fleet. Ambassador Walker, we're in position. No hostile actions detected from Council forces yet. Thank you, Admiral Park. Maintain defensive positions only, James replied, then turned back to the Council. As you can see, we prefer dialogue to destruction. Elder. Wise's telepathic voice resonated again. You have planned this carefully, human. But what happens next? Even if we were to accept your independence, The galaxy cannot function with two competing power structures. Why not? James asked. Earth's history shows that competition breeds innovation. When powers must compete for allies and resources through merit rather than force, everyone benefits. Chaos, Chancellor Vex spat. It would be chaos. Or freedom. A new voice said. Everyone turned to see Delegate Ram from Mining World 7 standing. My people have labored for 3 centuries, sending 90% of our resources to the core worlds. The humans offer us 40% partnership. That's not chaos, Chancellor. That's hope. More delegates began to stand. The humans cured. Our water sickness, said the representative from Desert 9. They taught our children to read, added the insectoid from Hive Colony Beta. They asked our opinion before making decisions affecting us, stated the robot delegate from Machine World 1. Chancellor Vex's form flickered dangerously. Silence, all of you. Guards, arrest any delegate who speaks against the council. But the guards didn't move. The massive security beings who had stood silent for the entire session remained at their posts, unmoving. Captain Zord, Admiral Tor commanded the head of security. Arrest these traitors immediately. Captain Zord, a stone-like being from Granite Prime, slowly turned his massive head. No. The single word shook the chamber more than any explosion could have. My people were conquered by the Council 800 years ago, Zord's gravelly voice continued. We were told it was for our protection, but we were warriors, protectors. You turned us into prison guards, enforcing laws we had no part in making. The humans offered us a choice. We choose freedom. The revelation that even the Council's security forces had been compromised sent panic through the founding species. Delegates. If they couldn't trust their own guards, who could they trust? James stepped forward. This is not a coup. This is not a conquest. This is an awakening. Every species deserves the right to choose their own path. The Council can continue to exist, governing those who wish to remain. But you will no longer force your will on those who choose freedom. And if we refuse? Chancellor Vex asked, though the energy being's form had dimmed considerably. Then we implement Plan B, James said simply. Which is? James pulled up one. Final display. It showed the galactic economy, trade routes, resource flows, manufacturing centers. Then, with a gesture, he highlighted all the Alliance worlds. They formed a network that controlled 60% of raw materials, 40% of food production, and most critically, 70% of the rare elements needed for hyperspace travel. Economic isolation, James explained. We stopped trading with Council worlds. No resources, no food, no fuel. Your core worlds will survive, but your quality of life will plummet. How long before your own population's demand change? Asterisk the Council. Chamber remained tense as Chancellor Vex conferred with the other founding species representatives through private channels. James Walker waited patiently, knowing that these next moments would determine the fate of billions. Finally, Elderwise spoke for the group. Ambassador Walker, what you propose is unprecedented. The dissolution of 10,000 years of order cannot be decided in one day. I agree, James replied, surprising many. That's why we propose a transition period. 6 months. During this time, any world can choose to remain with the Council or join the Free Worlds Alliance. No force, no coercion, just free choice. And the Council worlds? Admiral Tor asked, his warrior's pride clearly wounded, but his tactical mind recognizing reality. Will continue as they are, James assured. We're not here to destroy the Council, Admiral. We're here to offer an alternative. If the Council truly serves its members' best interests, they'll stay. If not, he shrugged. Chancellor Vex's form flickered between colors, anger, calculation, and perhaps resignation. you would divide the galaxy. No, Chancellor. We would unite it through choice rather than force, James countered. Imagine two systems working side by side, learning from each other, competing to provide better lives for their citizens. That's not division. That's evolution. A communication alert sounded. Admiral Park's face appeared on screen again. Ambassador, we're detecting massive hyperspace signatures incoming. It appears to be ... civilian traffic, sir. Hundreds of ships. From various worlds, all requesting permission to approach. James smiled. Put them through to the chamber, Admiral. The screen split into dozens of smaller displays, each showing representatives from different worlds. Not official delegates, but citizens. Farmers, workers, teachers, engineers, doctors. A young being from Farm World 5 spoke first. We've been listening to the broadcast. Is it true? Can we really choose? Before anyone could stop him, James responded. Yes. For the first time in centuries, you can choose your own path. The chamber erupted as more voices joined in. Questions, hopes, fears, all pouring through the communication channels. The council delegates watched in amazement as world after world expressed interest in the alliance. Chancellor, Vex raised a hand, and surprisingly, the voices quieted. It seems, Ambassador Walker, that you have already won. Not through force, but through something far more dangerous. Hope. The energy being's form shifted, becoming less aggressive, more contemplative. I have led this council for 3 centuries. I believe that order, control, and hierarchy were necessary for peace. Perhaps I was wrong. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Chancellor Vex had never admitted error before. However, Vex continued, if we agree to this transition, there must be rules. Guidelines to prevent chaos, to protect those caught between our two systems. Agreed, James said immediately. We propose joint committees to oversee the transition, ensure fair treatment for all, and maintain essential services. Elder-wise projected approval. A young human shows wisdom. Very well. I propose we vote, not as founding species and minor members, but as equals. All in favor of accepting the transition proposal? One by one, delegates raised their appendages, tentacles, or energy fields in agreement. Even some founding species. Members voted yes, seeing the inevitable tide of change. Paul opposed? Less than a quarter of the delegates opposed, mostly from worlds that benefited most from the current system. The motion passes, Elder-wise announced. Let it be recorded that on this day, the galaxy chose evolution over stagnation. James Walker felt the weight of 3 years of preparation lift from his shoulders. But he knew the real work was just beginning. There's one more thing, he said, pulling out a small device. Earth would like to offer a gift to all species, Council and Alliance alike. He activated the device, and technical specifications appeared on screen. Complete medical databases for treating all known diseases, advanced agricultural techniques for any climate, and basic education programs in 10,000 languages. Free to all, no conditions. The chamber fell silent again, but this time in wonder rather than shock. Why? Chancellor Vex asked. Why give this freely to those who might remain your opponents? James looked directly at the Chancellor. Because that's what humans do. We share knowledge. We believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. Your people suffering doesn't make our people stronger. The galaxy is big enough for all of us to thrive. As delegates began discussing the implications, downloading the data, and communicating with their worlds, Admiral Park sent a private message to James's earpiece. The President sends her congratulations, Ambassador. You've just changed the course of galactic history. James looked around the chamber, at former enemies becoming cautious allies, at oppressed species realizing their freedom, at the birth of a new era. No, Admiral, he said quietly. We all changed it, together. The sun was setting over the council station, casting long shadows through the crystal walls. But for the first time in 10,000 years, it felt like a new dawn was come in. Asterisk.